Hi, I'm back with Let's Watch Kim Make a Quilt series. Yesterday afternoon, I spent about 2.5 hours cutting out the background fabric for the quilt, which is kind of all the negative space, and this fabric isn't really negative, but I'll show it to you here. Let me flip my camera. Okay, and it's right down here. It's kind of a pretty, it's kind of got an off-white background and this kind of buttery yellow print. Here are all the pieces that go in all of the blocks. And each lady is one block, and there are 16 of them. What I do when I do one of these, is I write out a cutting plan in my notebook to figure out what pieces are the background and how many of those I need for one block. And then of course I multiply it by the number of blocks. So that's all done. I did cut enough of those for 16 blocks. Here's another. This is the cutting plan diagram that she puts in her patterns. There's a whole lettered list of pieces and their sizes, and you can see here we have the pattern is divided into components. Here's the head and the face and the hair. And I just counted, there's 25 pieces of fabric in just that little block component right there. And its finished measurements are 6.5 by 4 3/4. So it's a lot of little pieces. Then the torso, and then the skirt of her dress, which is great because it makes it way more manageable. But you can see she gives all the sizes of all the pieces, and you have to figure out how many of each one you need, because sometimes there's multiples in one of these components, like this little piece K here, which is a 1-inch square. There's 6 of those in just the head, and each one of them, there's background fabric, and then there's hair fabric and face fabric. So that's what I've gotten done so far, and I'm going to stop this video for a second so I can set up to start cutting the face or skin fabric for you, and I need to reset my camera. So hold tight, be right back. Okay, here we are. I'm standing at my cutting table with my cutting mat on it. This is my skin. I call it skin. That sounds kind of gross, but it's the flesh toned fabric for her head and torso. And my tools I'll be using are a rotary cutter with a blade guard. Always use the blade guard because these are sharp. Ask me how I know. I'll tell you sometime. Next is rulers. This is a 2.5 by 8-inch ruler, which will be great for a lot of these cuts because they're tiny. And then I sometimes use this. This is a 6-inch by 24-inch ruler, which is also, it's like my go-to. So the first thing I need to do is and I use a 5-pound weight to hold my big ruler down because sometimes it slips. So the first thing I have to do, and I'll turn this a little bit so you can see. You may not be able to see all of it. Remember, I'm not influencer quality video and whatever. So I'm going to line this up because my edge is really uneven here. And I've pressed this fabric. Pressing is really important, and you'll see that when I start putting everything together. It's super important. So I'm going to line this up on my cutting mat in a nice straight line. I'm making sure my ruler is lined up on some of the straight lines here. That helps make sure everything is cut straight, and the fold of my fabric is on a straight line. Expose the blade, and then you just slice that right off. And now I have a nice straight edge to cut with. So in my trusty notebook where I put, this is my fabric list here for her skin is right here. And so the first cut, I try to start with the largest cut I have to do here. So one of them is a 4-inch wide by 5-inch long piece. So I'm going to measure over. I'm going to lay the 5-inch line of my ruler on my fabric here, like this. I'm going to get my weight and put it right there because that holds that. I tend to cut and my ruler likes to slip to the left, which is not good because then your fabric keeps getting crookeder and crookeder. Is that a word? More crooked and more crooked as you go along. So we're going to cut this piece. And then, move my excess out of the way. And then I have to have, oh goodness, I need 16 of these 4-inch by 5-inch pieces. And every piece of fabric, when it comes on the bolt, it's folded in half like this. It's 44 inches wide, and it has a finished edge called a selvage. And so I have to cut that off. I'm going to use my little short ruler here. I have to cut that off. And now it's ready to cut. So now I will measure over 4 inches. Put my weight down. And I have now cut 2 pieces. So, because I have my fabric folded, see? La la. And this piece here is going to actually be, I'm calling it her back, but in the pattern, she's calling it the chest. But I'm a little uncomfortable with that because the dress is like open clear down to her waist if it's her chest. So I'm going to call it the back, whatever. All right. So that's what I'm doing today, cutting out the skin and the hair, and that's kind of the process. It's a really abbreviated process, even though this video is way too long now. So we'll come back when it's time to cut out all the dress pieces, which are beautiful. I can't wait. See you later.